What's up, YouTubers? Today is, I think, Saturday. Yeah, Saturday the 20th of March, 2021. Well, it's official now. Yesterday I made a video on how they're closing the border from Guatemala to Mexico. And just the land border. You can fly out of the international airport, no problem. You can fly to any country that's open, but at any given time that changes constantly. The reason I'm kind of doing an update is to share some news that I've heard, what you need if you're going to be the exception, because the border is open if it's medical related, or if you're not an embassy, but if you're like a diplomat, or you have a special circumstance like that. I had heard from someone I know that crossed the border, and it was for a medical purpose, as a matter of fact, but they still wouldn't let them cross unless they had a doctor's note. So previously in the past, my understanding was you could just say you had a medical issue. When I crossed the border from the United States into Mexico, they didn't ask me anything. In fact, the bus took us to a special place, not the actual border, so I had to go like 20 or 30 kilometers back to the border to get my passport stamped. And no one even asked. That's probably still the case in Mexico. I'm pretty sure you can get in. I'm pretty sure you don't need any permission or nothing. I could be wrong if someone wants to leave in the comments, but from another viewer, my understanding is you can come in. But as always, Mexico let people just fly in anyway. So it's the same with Guatemala, as far as I know. This is just the land border. What's going on is, this is my interpretation of events. This is part of the video where I say where I think this is all going. What appears to be happening is President Biden needs to not shut down the border, but there's a problem in the border from Mexico to the United States. It's really, from what I'm reading, it's getting hectic there. So they're trying to stop all that migration from Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador, but it's primarily from Honduras. Honduras is I'm not sure why or the heretofores, but it's mainly migrants coming from Honduras to the United States. And apparently it's getting to be quite a bit. So basically what the governments are doing around the world, including the United States, is putting pressure on governments to shut down their societies and using COVID as a reason. So number one, you can't travel overland, or number two, you can't fly in some cases. And then number three, what I think is going on is what they're doing is they're using COVID, like for example in Brazil, the United Kingdom, just to name a few, even France. They're using COVID as so you can't protest the government. So they'll just say, well, you're locked down from this time to this time, just to prevent you from protesting. So that's basically what I think is going on. It's just a social. They're normalizing being stuck in your house. They're normalizing not working. To a certain extent, depending on where you are in the world, they're normalizing being dependent on the government, and with the idea of shutting down dissent and things like that and travel. So I understand for a lot of viewers, they say this is going to be over. Things will be back to normal. My view is slowly changed over time, that this is kind of the new way we're going to live. And I'm not, that's just my opinion. And other viewers have the view, well, this is all over, we need to comply, things will go back to normal. See, I don't think whether you comply or not, things are not going back to normal. Government's gotten too much power, like another viewer had mentioned. They tasted the brass ring, so to speak. They're not going to give it up, which I understand. So now we have the evidence. We have more and more evidence that's the case. It's not just a case for the United States stopping migration, but it's actually true, very true of Europe. If you see what Angela Merkel's doing in Germany, and if you see what they're doing in England, especially in the UK or in France, they're using coronavirus to shut down things so people can't actually migrate legally or illegally, and they're doing things where they can't protest in the street. Recently in the news, something happened in I think in the UK, where a police officer killed a woman, and then they prohibited him from protesting it. And they were pretty violent about it, or at least that's what some people are saying. That's some people's interpretation. Then the same thing happened in the UK, kind of in the past, where the yellow vests were stopped protesting. But more recently in the Netherlands, they're using Corona. Like, you can't be out during certain times so you can protest the lockdowns, and they're saying it's because of Corona, but it's basically they just don't want people protesting all these new government measures. So that's my view, slowly but surely. I don't know. So far, I think it's affecting the economy in different ways. Some parts of the economy are growing, other parts are not. At least in the U.S., we have about 10% unemployment, I think. That's my understanding. And certain segments of the population are unemployed, and I doubt they'll ever get their old jobs back. And it'll be a long time before they get new jobs. And then there's other parts of the U.S. economy. If you're in the digital economy, you're doing pretty good. You're making money, and you're just working online. So that's what I see kind of going forward in the future. That's why I mentioned in my videos, if you have kind of an old-time job where you lost your job, consider getting new skills so you can work online, or consider, personally, I think working online with a combination of working like your own business, like a brick and mortar business. I hate to use that term, brick and mortars, but you can see what I mean. A service-based business or something along those lines, something you physically do, but you do for yourself, you work for yourself. And if you have those skills, you can basically live anywhere you want, including Latin America or Asia or wherever. The trouble is getting there. That's with this recent thing in Guatemala. They shut everything down, so now people can't do their visa runs. People had planned to come in. They might not come in now because things are shut down for 2 weeks. And like I said in my previous video, we'll have to see if they keep extending this, because in the UK they did. I presume they might do that in this case. If they actually do that, I think my thesis is more correct, that they're just using this as an excuse to shut everything down. It has nothing to do with coronavirus. It's everything to do with stopping migration, stopping dissent in various communities around the world. In fact, I can't keep up with it all. I mean, from like Lebanon to like Brazil to the United Kingdom to the Netherlands to Paris, France, to the Norway. Norway is a good one. Like, I can't keep up with it all, but there's more and more people just not resisting, so governments are just encroaching more and more. So I don't have a solution for most people. For most people, they don't really care. They're just, I hate to say they're going to live like slaves. That's their view. That's what they're going to do. And there's other people who are not going to accept. They're going to migrate to smaller communities, and they're going to migrate to other countries where things are, I don't know, more free, or things are, you can get away with a lot more. Like, for example, Mexico or Guatemala, a lot of what's going on in other parts of the world is not even enforced here, really. Just for what it's worth. Anyways, I tend to think I read a good article today. We're going into this, I don't like calling it a serfdom, but when Rome fell, we went kind of in the dark ages. Some kind of dark age. We're going to some kind of dark ages, but it's going to be dark ages for some people, and like for other people who are in the digital economy, it's not going to be like that. They're going to have resources, money, and they'll find workarounds. And there's so many workarounds as far as travel, as far as from getting point A to point B. In fact, I just saw another video that's kind of exciting. It's about Saipan. For those who don't know, Saipan is part of the Northern Mariana Islands, which are territories of the United States, which has U.S. tax law. Well, I don't want to get into it, but their tax treaties, or their tax haven, or their tax status is interesting for Americans. You're not as highly taxed as many people think, which is true of Puerto Rico. And there's just a lot of stuff like that where I already see Americans bugging out there. They're finding out they'll pay way less tax out there than in the U.S. They don't have to wear masks. The downside is the medical care is a little different out there. The only reason I speak about the Marshall Islands and the Northern Mariana Islands is because as a young kid, I really liked studying information about that part of the world. It's really fascinating to me. And so when I see stuff like that, I just mention it. But anyways, for people who have knowledge, Tai Lopez knowledge, if you got that kind of knowledge, and if you have a little bit of capital and ambition, especially if you're young, you're just going to move. You're going to move to parts of the U.S. where things are less bad. Then you're going to move eventually probably to Latin America or Asia where things are going to be less bad, because it seems to me like with California and New York doing what they're doing, they're just going to drag this out till everyone's basically broke or bankrupt. I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just Just how I see it. So we're going to some kind of Charles Dickens world where there is the best of worlds, best of times and the worst of times. For some people, it's going to be great. For other people, it's not going to be great. If you're not flexible, if you can't, or you're unwilling to learn new skills, and also if you're not willing to move, like if you happen to be in California, New York, and you're not willing to move, you might have some issues. And then if you move to like Florida or where, Texas or whatever, and then things will be fine there, but things eventually will get bad there. So then you'll need to move somewhere else. As long as you're 2 steps ahead and flexible, you'll be okay. And the other thing I personally feel strongly about, but it's probably because of my personal circumstances and just how I was brought up and things like that. If you have skills that are in demand, you'll do okay. And all these skills aren't necessarily online. I'm just suggesting for where I'm going, some of those things are online. A lot of those other things I don't talk about are just, I don't know what to call them, but like a brick and mortar skill where you do something, face to face. You don't necessarily work online, but you grow something and then sell it. Or there's just so many things like that I don't want to get into because I don't think it's going to be of interest to most of my listeners and viewers. But there's these hard skills, like Nagelbud talks about, like learning self-defense, being physically fit, eating healthy and properly. Those are skill sets, maybe not some of yours, but people like me need to learn. It depends how old you are and how you're brought up and all that, but skills like that are going to become more and more important for wherever you live in the world, because I don't think you're going to be able to count on the medical system in the West that much anymore. I'm not claiming it was great to begin with. I'm just saying, like, if you need brain surgery and a bone set, yeah, they're good. They're good until they're not available anymore. This is all I'm saying. There's a lot of skills like that you can learn, and you can be useful to the community you live in. Growing stuff, how to defend yourself, how to heal yourself, how to fix wounds and bones and stuff like that. Even stuff like CPR is valuable. But anyways, I'm getting off point. But if you're willing to learn these skills, you'll be of value to the communities you live in. And other communities will want you to live there. You'll be welcome. Well, I hate to say welcome, but you'll be more likely to be welcome and brought in if you can show you have these skills and be a good part of the community. There's going to be a lot of people who don't have those skills and not willing to learn them, and who are maybe a little dysfunctional, who won't fit into certain communities, so they're going to have it tough. I don't have a solution for them really. Unless you're open-minded and willing to change, it's going to be tough for some people. Then for other people who don't have the skills but are willing to learn them and just go with the flow and jump right in and learn them and willing to learn from the mistakes, they're going to be fine. There's people who already have these skills. They're miles ahead of me. So check out their channels. You can learn from a lot of people like that. But nowadays, the way that YouTube algorithms work, there's a lot of nonsense that's being promoted because it makes money, not because you're learning anything or it's valuable, really. Like, shout out to Nagelbud. He knows that. Most of my viewers probably know that. I didn't realize the extent of fraud that was going on, like in the spiritual community. Now, I knew about trading and investing. That I know about because that's my bucket. But from trading and speculating to spiritual stuff to the manosphere to just everything, like online marketing, all that stuff. Like, a lot of the gurus are really fake, and probably in the weeks and months ahead, you're probably going to see a lot of this come out in the press. It's getting to the point you can't hide it anymore, and it's getting to the point where a lot of this stuff, I don't know how it's going to unfold, but it's going to be pretty obvious to a lot of people, and that's just going to change a lot of stuff. So for what it's worth, there's just a lot of nonsense going on in the internet world and online and on YouTube and Facebook, stuff like that. Anyways, I want to wish all my viewers a good evening. Hope they have a good Sunday. I hope they're not getting caught up in all this tribal nonsense, because I haven't even mentioned the half of it. Like, there's just some governments are adding new taxes when you fly in that they didn't, like 10 or 15 bucks. That's nothing. I totally get that. But that's going to keep happening. It's escalating. There's more. I've heard of more people telling me they flew in the whole airplane, had to disembark and go through customs. You know that you normally go through customs in the aduana, and they don't normally check your bag. Like when I go to the Philippines or when I go to Mexico, they never check ever. I mean, they almost never check my bag. If they do, they barely even look through it. Well, now some governments are like going through every passenger's bag and then finding them money for stuff they're supposed to report, like importing like new stuff. They're saying it's new, even if it's not new, charging you 25, 50 bucks. Again, with all these problems, governments are just coming up with these escalation of what they're doing. So traveling's not going to be as fun and enjoyable anymore, even if you do it overland. Although to me, it's less of a hassle if you travel overland. And these things are just going to continue. So people can't ignore them anymore. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, as some people who seem to have their head in the sand. And it'll be interesting to see how many people change their views and kind of recognize what's going on. For right now, it appears most people aren't. So it'll be easy for governments to shear the sheep, so to speak. Anyways, I'm going to load this up, wait for the comments. Leave a comment if you're hearing anything interesting or doing anything interesting. I appreciate the views and the likes and the shares and the subscriptions. Thanks.